back to the okay. So basically, the compass is divided into 8 different. So you only have to memorize the names of 8 houses. And the cool thing is, if you know where each star lives, it never really moves. So where does the North Star live? Yeah. Okay, so the North Star never moves, and everything moves around it. Or actually, they don't move. We're moving. But for us, the stars are moving, correct? Okay. So if you know that the North Star is always going to be directly north, and then say Orion's Belt, there's a star in Orion's Belt that you'll see tonight that rises directly due east and directly sets south. And so you get it? So you start memorizing each star, where it rises and sets. And then you can start using the markings on the railing to place the sun, where the sun is in the sky throughout the year, where the moon is throughout the month, because it moves too, and then where the stars are, and the planets. So that's super exciting. So tonight, just to put it in your head, let's imagine the sun is setting directly west. Let's just say it's setting directly west. And we want to go directly south. Where would you put the sun on this canoe to go south? Yeah, you would put it right on this beam. So when we start navigating, that's our challenge, is to keep the sun directly on our beam. And that's a navigator's job to say to the steersperson, they have to communicate, and you have to be really, really in tune with how you steer, because if you piss off the navigator, they get tired. So you gotta really be in tune with the ocean. And that's why they say if you want to sail Hokule'a, you need to start on a tiny 6-man canoe first. You gotta learn how to paddle, learn how to dive, learn to surf, learn to feel the waves, learn to steer a 6-man, when you put the paddle in, when you release it, and then you can start going, learn how to sail tiny little skippers, and then you get onto the big canoe, yeah? So if you all of us are training, and besides on the canoe, surf every day, you know, go look at the stars every night, whatever makes you happy in the water, you know? So if you look at the lines on the canoe, then the compass is, I know I took a, what do you call that thing? Not a, is it? It's the, I don't know. He has this cool little tool. And then you put the line and the light on it, you know, the angles. I don't know what you call that thing. But they measured all the angles, so they're very accurate. From the navigators. From the navigators platform.
So the canoe turns into one quadrant. So you have 8. So these houses represent. So these lines represent 8 of the houses, starting from the beam.
So there's several bunched together back there. They're closer together.
Yeah. So then you can count
the quadrant too. Yeah. So tonight, basically, if Shannon's navigating or if I'm trying to navigate, whoever's steering, if we say up, that means bring the canoe into the wind, and if we say down, bring it off the wind. So it helps if other crew members know how to navigate too a little bit, so that the navigator's not doing it all on its own. So then, say, you know, if you're like, oh, I think we're kind of off, you can start helping the steersman. So I might tell you, okay, this is our mark. Keep that star on that shroud right there. And if it's off, you tell your steersman, so I don't have to keep telling you, because the navigator doesn't get to sleep, like, ever. Maybe take a couple naps here and there, because the navigator has to constantly be watching everything around you, how the clouds are moving, the birds.
Yeah, and I know it says the navigator makes about 1,000 observations
a day.
Yeah, a day. So wind, swell, clouds, colors of the sky, colors of the ocean.
So this is the most important time of day, sunset and sunrise. Is when you there's 2 times in your head that you when you try and put down where you think you are and where you think you've come from. And Nainoa does it all in his head. Some people write it down, but Mao told him, what's the use with paper if it flies away? You don't have it, so you got to keep it in your head. So I think you know, sometimes there's no stars. A lot of times the whole voyage there's no stars, so what do? what do you think you do? You use the ocean swells. So they say there's about 8 different ground swells. And Mao was so good he could be sleeping in the hull and just feel it and wake up and say we're off course. Because he grew up navigating, you know, from the time he was 5. So we're too old already. But it's feeling the ocean, feeling how the canoe moves on the big swells. And here it's tricky because the swells are getting wrapped around Diamond Head, so it's not the true direction of the swell. When you get to the open ocean, they're very accurate. And you see the big ones moving. So you can tell how the canoe lifts as it moves on the swells. And you can use the wind direction also. In the middle of the day, when the sun's right above you, you can't use the sun. There's no stars, no moon. The swells are messed up. If you know that you're in the northern hemisphere and normally the trades come from the northeast, you can use the wind flag to orient your canoe that way. And another thing is the birds. Tonight, there's a manuoku, the white tiny little bird. So when you start coming closer to the islands and you think you're in the latitude of your destination, you start looking on the horizon. It's so cool. The last day, the navigator would be like, everyone get up, start looking for tiny flocks of birds, because they can only sail about 120 miles on average and then they return home. So at sunset, these guys are returning home to feed their young. And at sunrise, they're leaving their island. So at sunset, you try and follow the flocks back to their island. Yeah, so if you see that white bird again, you know you're close to an island, obviously. Okay.
You said more about swells. I don't know about swells. Waves go in certain directions in general.
Okay. Okay, so in the northern hemisphere, because we have the northeast winds that are super constant for us, there's normally a swell coming from the northeast. But when we sailed down south, we knew there was a big north swell coming, so that changed the direction of the major swell. So we followed that north swell all the way down. So it's really observing the weather before you go, so you know what's gonna happen. And then observing every day, if you know the sun's setting west and the swell's changing on you, say the swell starts coming from here, if you know what direction it's coming from when you have your cue at nighttime or when you have no cues, you still know the direction of the canoe on the swell.
So you're placing the swell. The swell will come either directly under you, to the quarter, the side, and that's how you're using it as a navigation, placing it on the canoe like the stars.
So if you, imagine we're on a swell right now. Where do you think the major swell is coming from? Even though we're being towed, can you see, can anyone feel it? Try and just stand with your 2 feet on the deck and feel how the canoe is moving. Yeah, it's kind of coming from an angle, yeah, like this. There might be like a remnant south. So if imagine that was our constant ground swell, going under the canoe this way and coming up.
Not sure I can feel that.
Yeah, can you feel it?
I'm not sure I can. So it's not waves. It's
try turn that way.
You can see us going up.
So can you feel your right foot going down, then your left foot, then your right foot, then your left foot, right foot.
Okay.
So that's the motion. If you want to keep this course, then you'd want to keep that motion, eh?
Jenna, what about navigating in stormy weather?
So when you, I think Naino always says that what he wants is to get in the doldrums. You guys know where the doldrums are? It's where the both systems collide and there can be no stars for days and you don't move. I think one voyage they didn't move for 2 weeks. They, like an apple was thrown overboard and it stayed with them for 2 weeks. It didn't go anywhere. And so it's waiting. And then if you don't know where you are, you have to wait until a cue comes up because you don't want to keep going. You know? Then you're off course. Another thing you have to account for is drift. So whenever you're sailing somewhere, you always stay high on your line. So say we're going to Tahiti, you want to adjust for how much you're going to drift.